the helmet affair for Antonio Brown. He is in Canada, I do believe, right, Chris Brockman? He's in Canada right now with the team. Getting set to take on the Packers tonight. I think helmets are 10% more potent up there in Canada. So we'll see.
Moonshine.
I don't think he's going to get out there tonight. But just the fact that he's there doesn't mean that this is all over, right? I mean, where do things stand right here on this front?
Well, I think they still got to figure out what helmet he's going to wear when the season starts. But I do think that the worst is in the rearview mirror. And I think a big part of this is the way that the Raiders sort of stood by him, and outside of Mike doing what he did on that Sunday where, he kind of drew a line in the sand. The Raiders have very much, been in AB's corner on this. I think he understood why Mayock did what he had to do there. And, I just tell you, Rich, like the verbiage, like that you hear coming out of there. And when you talk to people in that organization last year versus this year, is 100% different. Last year, I remember talking to John Gruden about the roster, and this is wrong, and that's wrong. We need to fix this, and we need to fix that. We won't have a chance if this doesn't happen. And this year you go there, and there's just more ownership of everything. There's more ownership of every player in the roster. And I think that's a subtle but obvious difference if you're looking for it, where you really see where Gruden has embraced Antonio Brown as his. And I think that was apparent on Hard Knocks the other night. And certainly, I think it's apparent to Antonio Brown and how he's handled this whole thing.
Yeah, but the one part of Antonio Brown on Hard Knocks that I would love to have seen, and I understand perhaps why we didn't, where it was what in fact did happen to go from the hunky-dory, they're kind of strolling off together, the practice field, Antonio Brown and John Gruden, like the end of Casablanca, right? Yeah. And it's the beginning of a beautiful friendship. And then he doesn't show up the next day, and Mayock shows up at the media tent to talk about all in, all out. There's 89 guys. There's one other guy.
Yep.
What in the world happened there? And when you say the worst is over, is that all bottled up? Like, because nobody saw it being unbottled over that 24-hour period. We didn't see the deliberations that led to Mayock showing up at the media tent.
Well, he lost his grievance is what happened. And, I think that whatever delusion he had about that, because I think most people didn't think he had a shot at winning the grievance. Losing the grievance, I think, was sort of what caused a lot of that, and the realization that, he was going to have to go out there in a different helmet. And I know it sounds small to all of us, but the one thing I think anyone in the Steelers organization that dealt with in the last 9 years would tell you, it's always the little things that set AB off. And if you want to look back just the last year, not winning the team MVP award is what caused him to storm off in Week 17 and miss that last game of the year with the playoffs on the line. And so it's just always been that way with him, where little things, whether they're slights, where he feels disrespected, whatever it might be, like those little things have always been the things that have set him off. And I mean, for the Raiders, here's the thing: he is who he is. He's in his 30s. You paid him. You gave him $30 million guaranteed. You know what you signed up for. And so, I think his reaction to this sort of thing, while it seems weird when you take it kind of in a vacuum, really falls in line with everything that he was in Pittsburgh and the issues that the Steelers had with him. And so I think, Mike did what he had to do, getting out there and saying, we're not going to be dealing with this on a day-to-day basis this way. But I think that the Raiders also knew that this is a part of what they signed up for when they traded for him last year.
Well, before we move on from this, then Albert, is there is another grievance that's coming, right? Over whether he can he can get the 1 year grace period for his helmet that everybody else that had red helmets last year got last year, and the arbiter, I guess, who was hearing this will have to decide: is that a rolling 1 year grace period for whoever raises their hand and say, "Hey, I want to wear a red helmet now," that wasn't tested the year before. If suddenly somebody raises their hand and say, "I want to wear a leather helmet," give me a 1 year grace period on that. Obviously, I'm using an extreme example. So there's another grievance coming. And there's one thing I haven't really seen any specific reporting on. Mm-hmm. What is his issue with the helmet, like the new helmet? Like, why doesn't – what exactly is it? Is it – because I'm hearing that field of vision is an issue. Another thing that I saw in Hard Knocks is it sounded like he thought it just didn't look good. Like he didn't look good in it, or it didn't look good or cool. Yep. What is it? Do we know?
Yeah, and I think field of vision is definitely an issue. I know that came up with Brady too, and Brady has, and one thing that's sort of gone unreported here, Brady has gone back and forth with helmets over the last 5 or 6 years. Like if you look really closely over the last 5 or 6 years, you can find individual games where Brady switched out of the helmet that he's worn, the model that he's worn really since he was a rookie, into other helmets, and then ultimately, a week or two later, he'll switch back. I think as much as anything else, it's a comfort thing. And, I think that there's a lot that plays into comfort for players. There's the whole, Deion thing, you look good, you play good, you get paid good, right? So there's that part of it. I think there's a piece of all of this. And then I think the functionality of the helmet, too, is a part of it. Just, feeling like yourself out there, And so I think that, again, this plays back into that little things set him off. He is very particular about the way he trains. He's very particular about the way that he looks. He's very particular about everything. It's just who he is, part of what makes him who he is as a player. And so I think it would, my feeling on it, just having talked to people who, have been involved in this, is that it's a comfort issue that sort of encapsulates a lot of those different things that go into players' comfort level out there on the field with the equipment they're wearing.
For more of the Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.